Hi, this is Mashnu, and I came across this game on the internet today. It's a nice attacking game played by Bobby Fischer with white against Palbenko in 1963 during the US Championships. And in this position, this is the position after the move knight to d6 by Palbenko with black. So let me show it to you. This knight to d6 was the last move of black, and I'll show you a few more moves, and then at a certain point I'm going to ask you to pause the video and to try to find the correct continuation. But let's start first with a few moves. Fischer plays here queen to g3, well, threatening of course something like bishop to h6 and then a mate threat on g7. And for this reason Palbenko answered king to h8, stopping the spin of the bishop on g7. And now the next move of Fischer is a very subtle one. He plays now queen to g4, and the idea of this move is to bring the queen into the attack to h5. Actually the target of the attack of white is not longer g7, but now it's h7. To attack h7, the idea of white is to place the queen on h5 and then trading on d4 so he can clear this diagonal towards h7. That's the attacking plan. Now here Palbenko answered c6. Now in my opinion c5 would have been a better move. I'm going to explain you why this would have been better after I show you the rest of the game. So here c6 is played, queen h5, and then the decisive mistake of black was queen to e8. Here white has, well, more or less a forced win. So I'm going to ask you now to pause the video and try to find the best moves for white. I'm going to continue showing you the rest of the game in a few seconds. Alright, so actually queen to e8, this was the last moment, the last chance for black to play this better move c5, but he didn't. He played queen to e8, and the next move of white is, as planned, bishop takes d4, e takes d4. And now comes an important moment. What would you play here with white? Would you try to save this knight by moving it? Or would you go for the attack with e5 perhaps? Or do you have another alternative? Pause the video and see if you can find the correct way to continue this game for white. Okay, so of course what white wants is to play e5, but the problem is that right now playing e5 would be a mistake, because black has the defensive resource f5. Now white doesn't have time to take on d6 because the queen on h5 is under attack. If the queen moves, let's say to g5, then bishop takes e5 can follow, and suddenly it's black who has the better position. So after f5 there is no really a good way to continue the attack. That means that e5 is too early now. What Fischer did in this position is a very beautiful move. He prevented the move f5 by playing this, well, it's actually a wonderful blockading move, rook to f6. Now this move prevents the queen from participating in the defense of these light squares. If black would take this rook on f6, then e5 is winning. There is no way to stop the checkmate on h7, because black has not any longer the move f5. So what Pavlenko did here is he played king to g8. Now e5 followed, and Pavlenko played h6, the only way to stop the checkmate on h7. The last move of the game was knight to e2. So white saves this knight, and now black has a big problem. Not only white is threatening to take on d6, there is also the threat of rook a to f1, placing more pieces into the attack, or perhaps even something like rook takes h6. Let's have a look. Let's see what if black would move this knight. The way of trying to avoid losing this piece. Then queen to f5 follows. You see, this is actually the main idea of this knight on d6 right now in this position, is to defend f5. So if we move this knight away, then the queen goes to f5, and now we're going to checkmate in the next move on h7. So this doesn't work, and leaving the knight here would not help black, of course. If you play something like c5, well, actually white can choose whether to take on d6 right now or to take on h6. That's also a very interesting move to threaten to attack on this side. If bishop takes, then queen takes with the mate threat on h7, and if now f5, then we can take simply with the queen on d6. So, well, perhaps a much simpler way to win is simply to take here on d6, and we have won a piece, and still we have an attack. Queen to f5 is still a threat. But let's return now a bit more, because I told you that right here queen to e8 was a decisive mistake. Here, if black would have played c5, then perhaps he could have saved the game. The idea of c5 is that if white wants to take on d4, then black can retake with the c pawn, so then this diagonal stays closed. Of course, white has knight to d5. I mean, that's the drawback of the move c5. The square d5 becomes available for white. So still we have a very good attacking chances and very nice position for white. Well, while I say this, I'm thinking about f5 now. How about f5 here? Is this a solution for black? Let's see. Because if we take on f5, you can play e4. That's the idea. e4 looks promising now, since the knight on d5 is not longer supported by pawn. Well, perhaps this is a position that, if you want to do some homework, you could analyze this. How about the move c5? Is there a clear way to get an advantage here for white? Or is this really a good defensive move that leads to equality? Perhaps if this is a good defensive move that leads to equality, perhaps then white should follow with some more calm way, like rook a to d1. Or perhaps play b3 to prevent c4 is also an option. But well, that's something that you can look at. In the game, queen to e8 was played, bishop takes, e takes, now rook to f6, the best move of the game. And if it's taken, then e5 follows. Alright, I'll just stop here now, and I hope you found this an interesting and an instructive example of this attacking chess of Bobby Fischer. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on YouTube.